because she needs to get me some better equipment. Morning, everyone, and welcome to another Talking Tuesday. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Danielle from Hartlepool Borough Council on what is a very special day because today is Young Carers Action Day. It's lovely to have you on board with us, Danielle, today.
It's lovely to be here. It's great. Really, really excited about the day today.
Me too. So obviously it's all changed this year, hasn't it? It used to be Young Carers Awareness Day, and that was in January. I'm thinking
You'll know better than I do, Sarah. To be honest, the last year's been a bit of a blur, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. But they've changed it now, so it's Young Carers Action Day. So can you tell us a little bit, obviously, for the people who don't know, what is a young carer?
So I think it's really important to consider young carers, and I think not all young carers will know that they're young carers, but these are children, people, young adults who are supporting after it could be their mum, their dad, part of their family, on a day-to-day basis when that adult has got some needs, and those needs can be really different. They can be, you could have an illness, which might actually be temporary. So some young carers might only be carers temporarily, but then they could have long-term illnesses, disabilities, mental health issues, could be suffering in terms of substance misuse and struggling with that. So I think it's really important for everybody to be how wide young carers, that cohort. I know that's a rubbish word, cohort, group, that group of children. And we have a long conversation about children versus young people, but I really do think that they are children, because this is about their childhood and making sure that we can really support them in that, in terms of what they're having to do for their families, which is absolutely, from their point of view, the right thing to do, which is why I think that often young carers won't think that they're young carers, because they will think that they are just doing this as part of, your parent or your members of your family. So it could be a sibling or sister needs their help, so they're going to offer it. So they might not always be their carer. So I think it's really important to note that.
Yeah, and most definitely, I completely agree with you, and I think that's quite obvious from the figures that we work with. I think obviously the amount of young carers that we've got registered with us has shot up a lot over COVID, but still I think we're only looking at about 300, which is probably only a very small percentage of how many young carers there are actually in the town who aren't aware that they are a young carer.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that everybody needs to think about that. So if you're at school, so if you're a teacher, or even some of them dinner ladies will know children really well because they have informal conversations with them. There'll be certain things that a child might say that people need to be really attuned to listen for, because it's not always really obvious. And I think some children, because it won't be seen as being normal, will try to hide it. So they don't want their peers to know that they're looking after, a member of their family. They don't want to have that conversation to say, actually, do you know what? I can't come out tonight because I have to look after my mum, because that's not wholly cool, is it? So I think it's really important for whoever is with any child, whether you're a youth worker, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a volunteer organisation, that you just listen out for things that then might be able to have a conversation to actually start to open up that, to say, actually, how are you helping your mum, or how are you helping your dad, so that then we can start to identify those that haven't been identified. Because I think you're totally right. I think that really we've only done the tip of the iceberg in terms of identification, and we really need to work better all together and communicate better to make sure that we are identifying them, because these children deserve our support. We're not saying it's wrong that they're supporting their families. It's absolutely right that they support their families, but we need to be able to put the framework and the mechanisms around them to make sure that they're supported to do that, and that actually, if there are other caring needs for that individual, we need to look at those. So if there needs to be support from adult services, because that adult needs some extra support, and we need to know that instead of that being reliant on our young carers, which isn't fair.
Most definitely, especially when they've got obviously the pressures of schoolwork. It's hard enough being a kid, being a teenager anyway, with friendships and boyfriends and girlfriends. And I remember being a teenager was hard enough as it was without having all the rest of it on top of it as well. So most definitely they need that bit of support. And it doesn't even need to be a big caring role either, does it? It can just be as simple as a couple of hours a week, whether that be helping do the housework, taking siblings to school, getting the brothers or sisters to bed, or whether it's a bigger thing, you know, helping parents get ready, helping them with their medication, cooking meals. It's a very wide, varying range of caring role.
Absolutely, and that's why they can't be defined as one thing, really. That's why we need to be really alert to it. I was shopping. I was saying to my daughter, I was shopping the other day, and I was in Tesco, and there was a lady who was in a wheelchair. It was an electronic wheelchair, but she had her 2 sons with her who were fundamentally doing her shopping for her. They were walking around, they had the trolleys, and they were doing everything for her. And it just, watching, it was like, I really hope they're getting the support that they need. You know, it might be that they're only doing the shopping, or it might be that they're doing a significantly bigger carer role. But I just think it's important that we look at.
Oh, I lost you for a second there. Oh, we're back.
The wonders of modern technology.
I know, it's so hard, isn't it? So obviously, if any sort of teachers or anyone in a school environment or a college environment, or even parents want to refer their children or a child into Hartlepool Young Carers, they can just do that via our website now. We've got a very easy link on our webpage, and it's just a very simple form. And then one of our team will contact them, talk through the caring role, and then we'll go from there. So it is really, really straightforward. And if, like I said, if a teacher or someone in college or anyone who's dealing with a child wants to refer them in, then we can sort of help make sure they get the support that they need.
Yeah, and I'd echo that, and I'd say all my work with Hartlepool Carers has been second to none, and I know how responsive and how easy it is to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. You know, it's not a huge issue. I would echo that. I would say anybody that thinks that, you know, they need support, or even if it's a professional that doesn't really know what to do, it doesn't have to be the carer or that contact. If you're a worker and you're just a bit unsure about how to manage it, either give Hartlepool Carers a ring, or you can ring into the council. I'm more than happy to have conversations with anybody in terms of carers and how we try to support young carers more. So yeah, I think that's I would hope anybody listening to this just have even if just a little thing you could do is in any part of your work, just be alert to it. Specifically this week, because it is action. It's what you said, Sarah. It's not awareness. This isn't now an awareness day. And I you know what? I totally respect the young carers that decided that they didn't want it to be awareness day and they now want it to be action day. Because this is about action. This is about doing something about it. We can all be aware. It's quite easy to be aware, but actually it's a lot harder to do something about it. And I think, you know, just if it's a tiny little thing, you think, one child, you're thinking, oh, I'm, a little bit worried, then just have that conversation with that child if you feel comfortable to do it, because you're probably the most likely person that they'll talk to. And if you want some guidance, phone Hartlepool Carers, because they are fab and they're very good.
Thank you. So obviously we've said it's not around awareness anymore, it's around action. So what is Young Carers Action Day and why is it so important?
I think the Action Day, and I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I think we have lots of days across the year that people think, oh, it's this awareness day, this awareness day. I think
this day and pizza day and
absolutely, I know. It's mad, isn't it? There's that many days, and you usually have to buy cards for them, don't you? And I think that's just about spending money. But anyway, think what's critical is that this action day comes from young carers. Okay,
Yeah.
this isn't a group of oldies sat in a corner thinking, oh, I know what we want. This is fundamentally from young carers who have said, we want an action day. We want people to know what life looks like for us. And I think as we've got a responsibility as adults and in the system that supports children, to say, you know, absolutely we need to listen to our children's lived experiences. We've got to understand what it looks like for them. So when it comes to it being, I love the fact that it's now an action day, because this then means that, to me, it's one day, and okay, that's great, but I want this to be a stepping stone to bigger stuff for us in Hartlepool particularly. So we've got our carer strategy that's been agreed. Again, it's a piece of paper, you know, people can put it on a shelf and ignore it. But actually we need to together as all of us as a system, because we can't work in isolation. I really want us to work together as a system to try and, first of all, identify young carers, be responsive to them and try to make their lives better. And understand what it means to them, because we might think that we've got a solution, so they might tell us, you know, what they're doing, and we might say, oh, it's all right, I tell you what, we'll get a worker to come in and do this and this. Actually, that doesn't take away any of the anxiety for that young carer about whether their mum is well or not well, or is going to be well enough when they get back from school and all that sort of stuff. And we might think we've got solutions, but actually I think we need to listen to our young carers and say to them, what is this, what should we be doing in response to what you feel, and how you live, and what will make it better for you, not what we think will make it better. So I think this action day is a starter. To be perfectly honest, Sarah, I think we've got a lot to do. I think a lot has been done, but I think this is a stepping stone to things and to us working together better with our young carers.
I really like as well that it's involving the young adult carers as well now, so it's including the 18 to 25-year-olds as well, because I think that's very important too.
Yeah, I agree. And you don't suddenly, when you're 18, you don't suddenly, like the next day, suddenly feel different, do you? You know, it's a number. And actually, you're totally right. 18 to 25-year-olds in terms of young adult carers are absolutely important in this cohort. And especially when we're talking about, because this day is about protecting futures in terms of the action day. So when you're specifically talking about 18 to 25s, it's really, really important that whatever we're going to put in place is allowing them to develop into their adulthood, but being able to be employed or being able to take on further training if they so wish. They don't suddenly turn 18 and then suddenly it's like, you know, just crack on. So I think that's really, really important.
We've noticed that we've been sort of trying to bring on board some groups for our young adult carers, because obviously we've got our young carer activities, and then we've got sort of things for the adults where it's bingo and coffee morning and stuff, but suddenly you turn 18 and you're not suddenly ready to pick up the knitting needles or things like that. So we've been trying to find ways to engage them, because it is a difficult age to engage with. So, but honestly, some of the stories of some of our young adult carers and what they've managed to achieve is fantastic. We've got one girl who is off now in Birmingham, and she's doing welding. And she's got an apprenticeship down there, which is fantastic. And then we've got people who are doing plumbing courses and all sorts. And obviously that's sort of what the theme's all about this year, isn't it? Protecting young carers' futures, and how the skills that they've got by being a young carer are actually making them invaluable in the workforce and for the future.
Yeah, and when you look at what they do as a carer, if you think about all the different skills, so I mean they've got resilience to start with, bless them, but they've got communication, they've got time management, they've empathy, negotiation skills. You know, if you sit and you think about what young carers do, it absolutely is invaluable in terms of their skill set. And what can we do? We need to support their caring role, but then actually look at, if they've got all these skills, what can they then do adult life in terms of employment, in terms of what they then can go on to next. They've got a huge range of skills, and I think again, we don't think about that, do we? We just think that they're in a role. So again, I think and that's carers, hasn't it? The young carers, in terms of, they've said, we want you to be thinking about our futures, and we want you to be thinking about how we can then engage in terms of into our adulthood. And I think that's really important, even in young carers. If we're talking about children, 7, 9, 10, just because they're 7, 8, 9, 10 doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about their longer term outcomes, because we need to do everything possible to make sure that their longer term outcomes are really positive for them.
Most definitely. When we talk to a lot of our teenagers sort of about obviously what they want to do when they grow up and that sort of thing, it's strange because so many of them say that they want to go into sort of nursing or teaching or childcare, and obviously that's because they've got those skills, which is fantastic. But then on the other hand, we don't want them to necessarily feel that they've been sort of pigeonholed into that role, and that's
changed. Yeah, you're right. Because actually, that some of their skills in terms of caring, is really, really what employers want nowadays. And
Definitely.
That doesn't necessarily just have to be in caring. If you think about negotiation skills, communication, all of that stuff they've done, that'll stand you in really, really good stead for the majority of careers that you can go for. So really, what we should be doing with them is saying, the world's your oyster. We need to try to help you to attain whatever you feel you want to do, but not pigeonhole it. If they want to, great. Pigeonhole if they don't.
But it is. It's very hard. But they're just, honestly, they're lovely. They're just such compassionate children, and just they have so much pressure on them, but they're just also, there's not one bad one among them. They're just lovely.
And do you know what? I take off my hat every time I speak to a young carer, or if I've ever done any group work with young carers. It has been awe-inspiring, really. I've been quite humbled. I'm not sure. I was lucky. I grew up. I had parents that needed to be cared for, and I still found childhood quite difficult at certain times. It's not easy being a child and growing up and going through adolescence. But then if you've got all your young carers on top of that, I absolutely take my hat off to them. I think they are absolutely awe-inspiring.
Completely. I've only been with carers for just over a year. I started December last year, so just obviously before the pandemic. And obviously, no, I wasn't aware of what they were doing, and that there was so many of them in the town. And then to come into this and to meet them all and hear the stories about what they're doing, you said it, you're exactly right. It's awe-inspiring, and you just think they're just incredible, and they deserve every opportunity in life.
They do, absolutely. You're totally right. We need to do everything we possibly can, and this day gives us that opportunity to shout really loud about it. Let's all shout as loud as possible, so that as many people as possible hear about it. So that then this starts something that then builds momentum, and that's what I really would like.
So we're saying about taking action. So how can people obviously take action on this day? Obviously, we know we're going to have our young carers and our young adult carers involved, and we've got activities going on for them. What about employers and schools and just the general public? How can they take action? What can they do?
I think it goes back to my point about there's a couple of things. I would like it to be just people to think, and I know that doesn't sound like a big action, but I would like, first of all, people to think about everybody, all the children that they work with. Are there any that they think are undertaking some sort of caring role? If they can't think of anybody, fine, but I would want them to be more alert. So in every part of the work that they're doing, be more alert about what the young parents. So it might be that the child starts to be quieter. So these children aren't suddenly children that will misbehave. They're not particularly challenging because they just said they've got that they are awe-inspiring. They are wonderful children. So they're not always the ones that we come before. So I think if you are working with children, you need to think really carefully about, is there anybody that would like to be quieter, is maybe being a bit, maybe in school, a bit late,
Yeah, not getting their homework done,
yeah, exactly.
being a bit unkempt, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't suddenly respond and think, oh well, they're just late, so we'll give them a, you know, a late mark or whatever, because we need to get into the skin of it. So so even if it's a tiny thing that I would like people to do, I would just like them to think about the children that they are working with, young adults, or, you know, teenagers. Just have a little look, be a bit more curious about what their situation is. And I also think, it, you know, if you don't know about young carers, then do a little bit of research. You know, go on. You've got your websites and your information that you send out all the time through Hartlepool Carers. There's lots of stuff nationally, so you can go on the Carers UK. There's stuff on there. There's information about the Action Day online. Just do a bit of research, even if at the moment you can't think on the, you know, on the 16th of March. I haven't got somebody I'm working with. That's fine, but you might do next week. You might do the next month. So do a little bit of research, you know, just so that you're ready, and that you're alert. What I would really want is everybody to be alert. It's the same with health services as well. Health services will come across either from one end in terms of adults. So if you are an adult worker or you're a health worker, you need to be alert if there are children in the family that potentially you think are undertaking some caring roles, and if you think there are, then you need to raise that and potentially referral to Hartlepool Carers, because those individual children or teenagers or young adults need support. Now, it might be that they don't want to engage, and that's fine. But I think we need to be open and just say, you know, this is available for you. Peer support.
Peer support, definitely.
Yeah, I think peer support's really, so that you're not on your own. So these children, if they've not had any conversations with anybody about this except within their family, how do they know that other people other children are experiencing the same thing? Well, that's, to me, where Hartlepool Carers can be all the time, because that's about that peer support. And I, as a young carer, can have a conversation with another young carer, and they understand me. They understand why I'm anxious about leaving dad, mum, brother, whoever. They understand, you know, when I'm a bit late to school, and like you say, I'm like a bit like I've rushed in. Or they might be bringing their brother or sister to school. You know, some young carers are dropping their younger siblings off and then having to get themselves to school, and then are late. Well, it's not surprising they're late, because they've just dropped off their younger
exactly
school. So I think it's just, for me, I would love to come out of this day people to be more aware. That's fine, but not just more aware, do something about it. So have a conversation either with the family or the young carer, or just do a bit of digging, because I think it's the little things that make the big differences, and I think we can work really hard on that.
Yeah, completely. What about sort of employers as well? Is there anything employers can do if we're talking about sort of protecting the young children, young carers' futures? What can employers do?
I think employers have got a key role to play. I think, like we just said, we were just talking about skill set of young carers. I think we probably need to think about how we engage a bit more with employers. But if you're an employer and you're looking into this, what I would ask of you is just have a think about how you could potentially, with your recruitment processes, or it might be you've got training, or you might have apprenticeship schemes, or you might be doing something in the community as an employer. For whatever reason you're thinking about employment, have a think about this group of children and young people who have got significant life skills. And I think what employers always say is that, you know, some as you become a young adult and you go into employment, you say, well, academically great, but actually from a life skill point of view, they're hopeless. But actually, the carers will have significant life skills that I think employers would really, really want to have. So I would ask employers to have a think in their recruitment processes, but also if they're doing any, apprenticeships or training, just to have a think about that group. And if they are interested, to get in touch. So either get in touch with Hartlepool Carers. I know Chris, I've worked closely with Chris on the strategy, and one of the bits is around employment and making sure that we can support young carers into adulthood, or get in touch with them at the council, and we'll tie you into the strategy work that we're doing in terms of making sure that we can improve the outcomes for young carers.
Yeah, and we were actually, obviously before lockdown, it's something that's had to be put on hold, but we were actually looking at putting together a sort of a carer friendly employer charter, so we can come in and do training with sort of employers as well. So obviously that cover carers of all ages, but it's something that to obviously, like we were saying about if they're going to be a little bit late or they have to be out for appointments or things like that. It's that sort of thing that obviously if employers are aware of a caring role, then they can give them that little bit of support and that little bit of sort of consideration if they are a little bit late or they have to nip out for appointments or that sort of thing. So obviously if any employers want to get involved in that as well, then please give us a shout and we'll get that sorted.
Yeah. Well,
is there anything we've missed, Danielle? Is there anything else we need to cover on the topic of Young Carers and Young Carers Action Day?
I think we've probably said most of it, Sarah. I think, but I suppose one thing is we have had our Health and Wellbeing Board in Hartlepool has approved our carers strategy, and it's an all-age carers strategy. If anybody wants to be involved, we'd love anybody to come forward that wants to contribute to that. I'll make sure that Chris has got it, so I'm sure it's on your website somewhere, Sarah. And like I said before, it's a document, and a document is just a document, isn't it? It's about how we then turn that into action. So if anybody would like to be involved, then I'd like to get in touch either with yourselves at Hartlepool Carers or with me, and we'll plug you into everything we're doing, if that's all right.
Fantastic. Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Danielle. It's lovely to hear somebody so passionate about it.
Absolutely.
And obviously the more people who are passionate about it and who want to make the change, and then obviously the more we can do. So it's been absolutely lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Pleasure. It's lovely speaking to you, Sarah.
And if you would like to join us on our Discord on the 9th to the 16th, you're more than welcome.
Okay. Is there a dance I need to learn?
As long as you know things like the Bob the Builder and the Cha-Cha Slide, you're all right.
I'm all right then. I'm all over it.
Sorted. Oh, thank you so much, Danielle. It's been lovely speaking to you. Goodbye.
And you. Take care. Bye.